The Toronto Raptors are at 500, but they've been riddled with injuries. How much can we actually judge this team? More on that with NBA analyst Noor Zainab coming up. And later, we'll look at the nominees for the year-end WTA awards, and I'll give my pick for each winner. Courts in session. Welcome into Court Time with Crina Mustafa. I'm Crina Mustafa alongside Noor Zainab, our NBA analyst. And today, Noor, we're going to talk about the Raptors because, they started the season not terribly. I think they're kind of where we expected them to be, but they've been hit with a lot of injuries. They're currently at a 9-9 record. They're 9th in the East. And let's look at this list of players that are on the injury report. Pascal Siakam, Fred VanVleet, Otto Porter Jr., oh, wait, I'm not done. Scotty Barnes, Precious Achiuwa, Delano Benton, and Justin Champagnie, which is that's more than half the team.
Bro.
That's everybody.
That's all you have. And that's why it was so funny when you were playing the Hawks and you saw Trae Young wave to the bench and you're like,
you're waving to no one.
You mean our support system? You mean our ball guys? You mean Fred's daughter on the bench? That's all we had. So it's been crazy because the injury bug, but also the flu is going around everywhere. It got Gary Trent out. He's still kind of sick. Freddie, Boucher, take your flu shots, guys, please. We need you.
Yeah, I know. It's weird because then some guys think they were okay, but then it kind of hits you again. And
yeah.
So, yeah, they've struggled a bit. They've lost 2 in a row against the Mavs and the Hawks. Excuse me. I want to forget that game because it was such a bad game. And then the Nets, of course, they kind of got hammered by the Nets. It was a pretty close game, though, in the first half. I will say, they put an honest effort. But at some point, those injuries, that's going to hurt you. And then kind of one very specific thing that I want to talk about was Coach Nick Nurse's comments on Gary Trent Jr. We know Nick has a history of being very tough on his players, and the whole quote here about his deflections, which were down from 3.4 per game last season, excuse me, they're down to 2.4 deflections per game. Nick Nurse has some very interesting words to say. Kind of, it was a lot, but kind of it's disappointing. We'd like him to be more aggressive. He kind of fits us if he does that, if he gets his shots. But if he doesn't fit us. And I feel like that line, if he doesn't fit us.
Yeah.
That's a little weird to hear from a coach.
It's a very interesting choice of words as well, because you're saying this when there might be trades coming up. So, and the trade deadline is fast approaching. And when you say and you make comments about a player not being able to fit, you're alluding to everybody else out there that they might be up for grabs if they can't do what they've been asked to do. But also my question is, I don't think it's meant to be, I know that's who Nick Nurse is. It always has been that guy. I mean, he's been fighting Pascal Siakam in the locker room, breaking guitars everywhere. But he's been that guy that calls out these players. And Pascal Siakam, Chris Boucher, Gary Trent's gotten a couple times. Malachi Flynn gets it every Sunday night. He has to hear it from Nick Nurse. So I think that's just kind of who he is. And I also think that if it really was about letting Gary know that you might be traded, he wouldn't be saying this publicly, because you're also devaluing someone's trade assets, right? So that probably plummets his value in the trade market by so much. So I think the way that Nick does it, definitely those were very interesting words to use. And maybe that's not what I would have done in that aspect, because I think it's right to motivate your players. And you don't know what will spark a fire underneath them, because we've seen Boucher turn his game around entirely. He's now someone that I want to see play every single night that the Raptors are playing someone. And I would even like to see him start sometimes too, because I think the way that he matches other teams in terms of length, in terms of speed, transition, everything, I think he really does bode well for the Raptors. And that's only come this far because you've had a guy like Nick Nurse torture you underward and be like, I know what you can do. I'm going to call you out on it, make you feel like shit right now. But later on, you'll be in talks for MIP. You'll be in talks for starting for the Raptors and things like that. And same thing with Pascal, where we know they've had a very complicated relationship, but it's been blossomed to where we are at now, where before Pascal was out, he was being talked about. I mean, maybe it's a lot to put him in the MVP convo just a few weeks in, but he was playing as well as an MVP should, and his ceiling is where the Raptors are only going to go. So I think in terms of his choice of words may be a little harsh, but I think his intentions were in the right place to get a guy like Gary going, because we also know Gary's a little bit of a streaky shooter. Like, he's a little bit inconsistent sometimes, and all you've been asked to do is be the offensive weapon. And if you can't be if you're going to be defensive liability, you will hear it from Nick Nurse, because he's a defensive-minded coach and he wants to have everybody who's on the court play defense first.
Of course. And I think the question with Gary Trent right now is it fair to be calling him out that way? Because the Raptors are depleted. They don't have a lot. So it's not like he's this like bona fide superstar who's going to like he's not like a Kawhi Leonard or somebody like that where you expect him to perform like that all the time. He seems to be a player that thrives among like the main starters that the Raptors have. I know there was that question of like, should we bring him off the bench to start the year? And we don't really have that choice, but it just seems to me that part of his struggles, like both on the shooting and on the defensive side of the floor, seems to be the fact that the guys that he's used to playing with aren't around him anymore. So that maybe that's affecting, because how much can we expect for him to be the leader right now of this team?
Yeah, and that makes you wonder, that makes you think, like, was he playing well those times because he had so many other guys to get the attention off of him, you know? And I think definitely, like, it is a lot to ask for a guy who hasn't been that number one guy first and foremost. Like, he's always going to be the third and fourth guy on a team, especially on our team as well. And it's a lot to ask for, as you mentioned, when everybody else is out. So it's definitely a lot of expectation on someone that hasn't been asked to do that much before. But the way that I would look at it is, now you're getting the opportunity to get the ball in your hands constantly. You should be getting all these shots up, whether you make them, you don't make them. It's the aggressiveness that Nick Nurse wants to see out there. And I think it may not be fair, but the only thing is, you're seeing OG put those numbers up. And OG has known to be a little bit inconsistent in the past as well. But right now in the season, he's the only consistent thing on this roster. He's averaging 24 points on the season right now, which is higher than his average in the past ever before. And yeah, I think he's being asked to do more than Gary Trent is, because he's going to be your main defender on the other end. And then he's facilitating, he's scoring, he's doing whatever he needs to do. So sorry, Gary, but you're going to have to play better. Like, we need to get these wins. And it sucks because, yeah, you're down all these guys. And injuries, you will never play around them, because every team deals with that. But that's when it's a next man up mentality. And that's when you have to just be that guy, come through and put those shots up. And yeah, it will take a little bit to work through it. We saw Malachi. He was able to have a good game against the Nets. He struggled again afterwards. But it's a matter of learning that it's, sometimes you have to be the next man up, and sometimes you'll be called out, and it's up to you whether you will take that and you will be, come out with it full for forces blowing everywhere, or you take that as a slight and you think it's disrespectful and you don't play. You ask for a trade afterwards. But we'll see which way Gary Trent wants to go.
Yeah, and I like that you brought up the next man mentality, because before we talk about the schedule, let's kind of talk about some other guys on the team that have been performing well. And two of those guys are rookie Christian Coloco and veteran Thad Young. Like, it feels like with all the injuries that have been out, it's actually given some time for these two to shine.
Yeah. Oh, see, I think Christian Coloco, obviously, once again, Messiah and Bobby, you have come through. You have found a dime in a dozen, a gem in a haystack, and we never thought, I get surprised every time, and I'm like, why are you surprised, Noor? Like, you should know at this point. Like, they're gonna go find whoever is great at it. But no, and Christian Coloco has been a sight, because this is a rookie. It's a rookie, and he's understanding his assignment. He's understanding where to be at all times, his blocks, his dunks, him in transition, his steals. Like, he's doing everything that you want someone like him to do. But the best thing about him that I've seen so far is a very somber attitude, where he doesn't let himself get too much in the game. He's not very easily frustrated. I mean, against Caleb Martin,
I was just gonna say,
he was the most poised, 21-year-old out there, and I'm like, you're not 20. You're lying. How are you so cool about everything, right? So that is such a defining factor in an athlete, because discipline takes you so far, and you're seeing that in a rookie right off the bat. And then Thaddy, I can't say enough good things about Thaddy. Thaddy has been on, and it's not just about the fact that he's having one of his best seasons. I think it's the fact that he knows where to be at the right, like, whenever I'm seeing a putback being put in, it's Thad Young.
He's there.
He's always there. He knows his teammates well enough to know when they will need him to help. He's a very sound leader on the court as well, where people trust him. He's a veteran. They understand where he's coming from for everything. And he just makes the right plays. Those are winning plays that he's making. And this is what a very depleted Raptors team needs, especially after losing Lowry, after losing a lot of their vet presence, because all you have now for veterans is Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam.
The bench mob.
Those are young guys still. They're what? Fred's like 26, 27? Like, those are still...
He's 28.
28, yeah, sorry. 2 years older, my bad. Not really even close to 30 yet, but I'm like, those are still very young guys. And we saw them grow up in front of us. But all you have is them as your veterans. But bringing someone like Thad Young in, even I would say Otto Porter, who's barely played anything so far, but I think just having that level of mentality, it's everything. If you want to have a shitty locker room system, look at the Nets. That's what you get with no leadership and no veteran presence. But that's exactly why you need someone like Thad Young to come through. And as much as I love Koloko, I think for me, Thad Young has stolen the show just because, like I said, all those putbacks, being at the right place at the right time, it's very necessary to win a basketball game.
It's so important to have that leader, especially to kind of also just keep the vibes higher. Because if you're looking at this Raptors team, you could find so many reasons to be very upset about where they are right now. Because literally everybody is out. Like, you only have a certain amount of players. And so you can go into panic mode and be like, oh my God, we don't have our leaders. We don't have our core. Like, what's going on? Yeah. And like, even Scotty was like struggling a little bit to start the year, even when he was healthy. So there's so many different ways you could go about it. But to have somebody like that just be like, okay, like, I've been through things before, like, I have the experience, and this is kind of how to lead the team. It's so, so important to have that in your locker room and on the court, because the Raptors desperately need a leader on the court right now, and I think that has filled that role pretty nicely.
1,000%. Like, he's just, every time you look up at the play and you see someone's shot too hard, or someone's dunk almost it's not enough, or a layup isn't gonna go in, he's always gonna be the guy to just clean up everybody else's mess. Like, he's your Swiffer, cleaner up.
He's your Swiffer. I love that. He's there for you. That's your thumbnail. Thad Young and a Swiffer. Oh, that's amazing. But let's look at their upcoming schedule. They don't have a very easy one.
No.
They play the Mavs and the Cavs at home, and they go on to play the Pelicans, the Nets on the road. And then they'll have 3 home games in a row against the Magic, Celtics, and Lakers. Now, this is a question I pose to you. Is it possible we don't see a win until that Lakers matchup?
It's you know what? You know what? See, the thing is, like, I'm always just like, okay, yeah, like, it's a Raptors team. We don't really have, someone to come through, especially if Pascal's out. And the thing with Pascal too, even if he's back next week, you can expect that he will not be like himself before he went out, right? Like, there's gonna be some rust there, and that's something that we have to level our expectations with. But the thing I will say is, look at the Trae Young game. Look at the Hawks game. What did you expect? We had no bench out there. We almost pushed them to double OT. We could have won that game, as you mentioned, had it not been for Scotty's little mishaps at the end of the regulation. But my other thing also was, like, the Hawks should have never let it get to that point. They never should have let us even have a sniffing chance of winning that game, but we almost pushed it to double OT. And that's when that next man up mentality comes up for the Raptors, where every guy, I don't know what Nick Nurse says in that locker room. I don't know if there's like a pistol to everyone's head, or, like, there's like death threats being thrown out or something, but they go out there and they play like it's the NBA finals, and they're so locked in. It's defensive minded that I don't know. I can't come out and be like, yeah, they're going to lose, because I know this team, and they're annoying. And they will keep the game close until the 4th minute. Sorry, the 2nd minute of the 4th quarter. Yeah, 4th minute. Even that too, honestly. The 2nd minute of a 4th quarter. So I will say, I think majority of them, they do lose. Because I don't see a win against the Celtics. I'm sorry. That's a juggernaut in the Eastern Conference.
Maybe. Just in terms of, like, they've played well against the Celtics, relatively.
That's true.
But they're also missing everybody, so.
But the thing with the Raptors too is, like, they play really crappy against lottery teams, and they
Yes.
play so
Yes.
well against like actual contenders. Where I'm like, do you just like call it a day off when you're against a lottery team? You know, they like the Robin Hood. They give the lottery teams the points and they take them from the upper team. So I don't know. I think it's tough to say. It also depends on what the team looks like, their injuries, if everyone's still sick as well. But I will never count the Raptors out. I think they always give themselves a chance. And also tomorrow night it's the Dallas Mavericks. The last time, no, not the last time, but the last few times I was there. The last time I was there when the Mavericks were in town, Lowry was here. He willed them to a comeback, a 30-point deficit comeback. I just gotta say, I think I might
Historic
also
night.
be the winning charm. So me being in the audience might get us a win tomorrow as well. They haven't lost when I've been in the
Okay.
stands. So
Okay.
if they do win tomorrow, say thank you to Nick Nurse and Noor Zainab. Thank
Yeah,
you.
so Noor is our like good luck charm. That's just her cats, like herself, like
Literally, yeah.
everything. So yeah, I think the
I
Raptors fan base
manifested.
will be very happy that you will be at the game, and maybe that'll be the win before the one against the Lakers. But thanks so much for joining me to talk Raptors. Make sure you're following
Anytime.
Noor Zainab on social media. I'll plug all her links below, and don't go anywhere because coming up next we'll be talking some tennis and WTA Player Awards. All right, welcome back into court time. Now we're moving over to tennis and the WTA specifically. The nominees for the Player Awards at the end of the year came out recently, so we're going to take a look at each category, and I'm going to give you my prediction because that's what I do, and we'll see how many of them I get right. But the first award is the WTA Player of the Year. The nominees in this category are Caroline Garcia, Coco Gauff, Ons Jabeur, Jessica Pegula, Alina Rybakina, and Iga Swiatek. Now, each of these players do have a case to win this award, but I think it's going to be pretty obvious that Iga Swiatek takes this one just because of the historic year she had. She went on that 37-match winning streak. She won Roland Garros. She won the US Open, so 2 Grand Slams this year. She's had a very, very impressive run to 2022, so I think she takes this one pretty easily. But if you look at this field, I mean, Caroline Garcia, she won the WTA finals just recently, so there could be some recency bias in the voters if they look at that. Coco Gauff's had another very consistent year. She's ranked really high in both singles and doubles, so that's definitely making a case for her to be the Player of the Year. Ons Jabeur made the final of the US Open, and she had a very, very solid year as well. Jessie Pegula just won Guadalajara, which is a WTA 1000 event, and she did very well in doubles as well with Coco Gauff. And Alina Rybakina, Wimbledon champ this year, pretty much a breakout season for her. So all of these players do have a case, but my final prediction, my final ruling is going to be Iga Swiatek. All right, moving on to the next award, which is the WTA Doubles Team of the Year. Now, taking a look at this field, we have our Canadian, Gabby Dabrowski. She's listed as a nominee with her partner, Juliana Olmos. Coco Gauff and Jessie Pegula, like I said, they've been pretty successful as a doubles team this year, so they are, of course, listed there as well. I do think, though, out of this field, the Czechs in Krejcikova and Siniakova are going to take this one. They won pretty much all the Grand Slams this year on the doubles side, so they're pretty much unbeatable. Kudermetova and Mertens did win the WTA finals, but I think that the Czechs have been really dominant on the doubles field for a really long time, and they continue to be at that very high level this year in 2022. So I think they're going to take the Doubles Team of the Year award home with them. Moving on to Most Improved Player. This is pretty exciting. There are some players on this list that I'm very happy are getting recognition, such as Ajla Tomljanovic. I thought she's been definitely on the rise. She's had so much potential as a player, and so it's nice to kind of finally see her getting more competitive with other players. She did really well at Wimbledon this year and the US Open. She made it to the semifinals. But I think out of this group that Haddad Maia is going to be taking that award home. She won 3 grass titles this year and became super dominant and became a very dangerous player. She made it to the final of the National Bank Open in Toronto back in August, where she lost to Simona Halep. So overall, a very, very solid year for her. She's definitely improved more than any other player in this list, in my opinion. So I'll go with Beatrice Haddad Maia as my pick for Most Improved Player. All right, moving on to Newcomer of the Year. This is the second last award. We got a lot of names here. I think for this one, it's a pretty easy pick for me. I gotta go with the teenager Zheng Qinwen. She's 19 years old and she put up such a fight this year. She really gave Iga Swiatek a lot of trouble. She was the only one to take a set off of her at the French Open back in May. She really beat a lot of top 10 players throughout the summer on hard court, and she just became like a really good up-and-coming star that I think we should definitely keep an eye on her. If she tightens up some of her game, some of her forehands, I think she's going to become a really, really successful player. So the teenager Zheng Qinwen is my pick for newcomer of the year. All right, moving on to the last award, which is comeback player of the year. Now, taking a look at this list, I think the voters are probably going to go with Serena Williams. I honestly, this list has the least amount of players compared to the other awards. So I was thinking that Bianca Andreescu should have been included in this list because she came back from her mental health hiatus and she started playing at a very high level. I think some of the best we've seen in a while, especially since her 2019 US Open run. So I don't know, I think Bianca got a little bit snubbed from being included as a nominee. But my pick is going to be Serena Williams. I mean, just the way she was able to come back from injury, go on one last final run. Potentially she may come back, we don't know yet. But yeah, Serena Williams is going to be my pick. She made it to through a couple of rounds with the US Open, and she looked to be playing really elite tennis considering she hadn't played for over a year. And yeah, so those are my picks. Let me know if you agree with them. I'll probably get some wrong, but I'm feeling pretty confident about them. And make sure to tune in next week on Court Time, where I'm going to go through the ATP Player Awards and the nominees then. Until then, see you next Friday. Thanks for tuning in. I've been Crina Mustafa, and this is Court Time.